जय जय श्री राधे। सब वैष्णवों को सादर सप्रेम जय श्री कृष्णा। श्री वल्लभाधीश की जय, श्री गोसाई जी की जय, श्री नाथ जी की जय, श्री गोवर्धन नाथ जी की जय। जय जय श्री राधे. Day 21 of the readings of the 252 Vaishnava biographies. Today is Varta number 4, Murari Das, and part 1. This is the way in which Murari Das played lovingly with his Sri Balakrishna Lalji, although no one understood this. Some days later, Narayan Das set a spy on Murari Das and told him to stay with Murari Das but not to be noticed. When Murari Das left the court to go home, the spy followed him and observed everything he did. When Murari Das had the door opened and went inside, the spy went to Narayan Das and told him what he had seen. However, he was not able to report on what went on inside the house. Narayan Das was very curious. He asked Murari Das to tell him what he did at home, but Murari Das would not tell him anything. Bhav Prakash, why? Because Narayan Das was not a Vaishnava. So how could Murari Das reveal his path and ways to him? When one reveals one's innermost practices, they can dissolve. Murari Das said nothing. Part 1 continued. One evening, Murari Das left the court to go home. Narayan Das followed him all the way there. Murari Das reached home in the usual way and was about to close the door when he noticed Narayan Das standing there. He addressed him, "Oh, Murari Das, today I have come to take a look at your house." Murari Das replied, "Look, at this time of the day I am not your employee. The talks that we have cease in the evening and remain in the workplace. I will return to your service when I come to work in the morning. Why have you followed me home?" Having said this, Murari Das closed the door without allowing Narayan Das to enter. Why? Because Murari Das only relies on his Lord. Therefore, he had absolutely no fear of Narayan Das. Murari Das also knew that if Narayan Das was truly serious, then he would return with some humility. So for this one time, he did not let him enter. Part 1 continued. Narayan Das went home. He thought to himself, after witnessing all of this, that Murari Das must be some great soul who never reveals their true form to anyone. So the next day, when Murari Das left the court and went home, Narayan Das followed him again. This time, when Murari Das went to close the door, Narayan Das touched his feet and begged. Seeing this humble behaviour, Murari Das let him enter the house. Bhav Prakash. Murari Das knew that only a divine soul would be capable of such humility. In the eternal Leela, Narayan Das is Premlata, who was a Sakhi of Mandakini. Here, then, it is Murari Das who has to accept him. For this reason, and seeing his humility, Murari Das allowed Narayan Das to enter his home. Part 1 continued. Again, very humbly, Narayan Das asked Murari Das to which spiritual lineage he belonged. "I don't see anyone else living here to help you. So what do you do when you come home?" Appreciating this humility, Murari Das told him that he belonged to the Sri Vallabh Sampradaya, and that his guru was Sri Gosaiji, and that he was his sevak, his disciple. Hearing this, Narayan Das fell at Murari Das's feet and asked him to allow him to be his disciple. Murari Das told him that he would be able to fulfill his wish when Sri Gosaiji would come there. Or, he said, "You can go to Adel and sort this out when you are there. Or you can write a letter to Sri Gosaiji and send a man to deliver it. Then, when he sends his answer, I will do as he instructs." Narayan Das replied, "Sri Gosaiji does not know me, so please will you write a letter to him and send a messenger to deliver it?" Afterwards, Murari Das went off to get on with his seva, and Narayan Das stayed sitting there. When Murari Das came out of his seva, then Narayan Das again asked, "Please now write the letter to Sri Gosaiji, and I will go back to the court and find a pair of messengers to send it with." Having said this, Narayan Das got Murari Das to write 2 letters, went back to the court and got 2 messengers to travel to Adel to deliver it. Narayan Das said to the messengers, "I will give a reward to the one who brings me the reply the quickest." Those 2 messengers set off and soon reached Sri Gosaiji. A Vaishnava read out Murari Das's letter and said to Sri Gosaiji, "Oh Maharaj, what should be the response of these 2 letters from Murari Das?" Sri Gosaiji wrote out the 8-syllable mantra with his own hand and said, "Write to Murari Das, telling him to give the Narayan Das the name initiation in front of his Sri Thakurji. Tell him that I will be coming there in a few days' time." The letter was written according to Sri Gosaiji's instructions and sent to Murari Das. The messengers set off carrying Sri Gosaiji's reply letter. After a few days they reached back to Narayan Das. He was very happy with the messengers. He gave them each a gold coin and a turban and sent them off. Narayan Das then came to Murari Das's home and personally delivered the letter to him. After reading it, Murari Das addressed Narayan Das, "Go and bathe right now." Narayan Das bathed there and then. When Murari Das completed the lunchtime offerings, he advised Narayan Das according to Sri Gosaiji's instructions in his letter. He then greeted Narayan Das with Jai Shri Krishna, and Narayan Das asked him, "This seems inappropriate for you to humbly greet me." Murari Das explained, "From now on, we should greet each other with Jai Shri Krishna. Don't feel otherwise in your heart." He then allowed Narayan Das to have the holy sight of his Sri Balakrishna Lalji. Narayan Das felt great joy. Then both of them sat and partook of prasad before setting off for the court. After that, Narayan Das came daily to Murari Das's home to have the holy sight of his Sri Thakurji. If any day he was not able to do this in the morning, then he would go home with Murari Das in the evening to have the sight of his Sri Thakurji. On the 5th day after this, Narayan Das sent messengers to Sri Gosaiji requesting him to come there soon. Sri Gosaiji saw that Narayan Das was longing to see him, and Murari Das also wrote to Sri Gosaiji asking him to visit them. In Adel, Sri Gosaiji was planning to go to Sri Jagannath Puri. Then Murari Das told Narayan Das that Sri Gosaiji would be coming there in a short while, and Narayan Das became overjoyed. Ever since Narayan Das had taken the name initiation from Murari Das, he showed Murari Das great respect, thinking of him as his all-in-all. In this way, Narayan Das became a great Vaishnava through the company of Murari Das. Therefore, know that it is very important to seek the company of accomplished Vaishnavas. In this way, Murari Das was a recipient of Sri Gosaiji's great grace. Thus concludes Varta number 4, the story of Murari Das, although there is truly no end to his tale. That is the end of the reading for today, day 21. We will continue tomorrow. Jai Shri Radhe, Shri Vallabhadisha ki Jai. सबको जय श्री कृष्ण, राधे, जय जय श्री राधे।